From the think tank, the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. Greg, it's good to have you on the program. The Philippines is not a member of the ICC anymore. Duterte, in case our viewers don't remember, Duterte withdrew the Philippines from the ICC back in 2019. And so it's not obligated under international law to detain someone who has a warrant against their name. So why did the Philippine authorities, why did they do this?
Well, the Philippine Supreme Court had already ruled that because Duterte didn't withdraw the country from the ICC until 2019, the Philippines was still bound by any investigation that started before that, including this one against Duterte himself. The government has also said that as a member of Interpol, they were obligated to comply with the red notice for his arrest. But, of course, at the end of the day, this came down to a political decision that the current government agreed to follow through with that.
Human rights groups, they've held this as a critical step for accountability in the Philippines. Are they right?
I think it's an important first step. And if Duterte, who's on a plane to The Hague, if he's actually convicted, this would be the first time the ICC convicts a former head of state, which would be significant, I think, for the court's legitimacy, and it would be a significant step for accountability for the drug war in the Philippines.
Flesh out a little bit, if you would, what you said earlier about this being a political decision in the Philippines.
So, President Duterte's daughter, Sara Duterte, is the vice president and was in coalition with the government of the current president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. As a result, as recently as last spring, Marcos was insisting that he would not comply with any order by the ICC for Duterte's arrest. But we've seen a real falling out between those two. So the Marcos half and the Duterte half of the government are now kind of really at each other's throats heading into midterm elections this year. I think it's no coincidence that the political fracture within the government happens to coincide with Marcos's willingness now to comply with the ICC arrest warrant.
It sounds like this could be a powder keg in terms of domestic politics, maybe domestic peace for the Philippines.
So it could be. The other thing going on here is that Sara Duterte, Rodrigo's daughter and the current vice president, has been impeached for misusing funds and threatening to kill or have assassinated the current president. So there's a lot of political drama going on here as well, and the Senate, which will have to try her for removal from office, will do so in July after midterm elections. So there's a real race by the Duterte camp to try to get as many of their people elected as they can to head off the potential for her to be convicted.
Duterte's trip to Hong Kong over the weekend, that sparked speculation that he was trying to evade arrest. Now, Duterte's daughter, as you were mentioning, denied that he was trying to seek asylum in China. So why would Beijing grant him that anyway?
Well, Beijing has a record of holding on to figures that they might find politically useful. For instance, the mastermind of the 1MDB, massive multi-billion-dollar scandal in Malaysia, is still in China. You can imagine how having a Rodrigo Duterte would be politically advantageous to China, especially if they think that his daughter has a shot at the presidency in 2028. But all of that speculation aside, obviously Duterte didn't want or didn't request asylum and chose to come back and take his chances at home.
And Duterte, a former strongman, he's now on his way to The Hague. Do you think there is a lesson to be learned that goes beyond Philippine politics, that a body like the ICC can still force a strong man, a former leader or a current leader, to face justice?
I think that there is an important testament to the ICC's legitimacy here. If the ICC, particularly given its efforts now to hold Netanyahu and Israel to account, other failures to bring heads of state to actually the dock in The Hague, there's been, I think, questions about the ICC's real role and viability. If it is successful in convicting Duterte with the willing acquiescence of the current government of the Philippines, I think that does say something about the ICC's viability as a route for justice.
And do you think this is exactly what the ICC needed at the right time, considering the verbal bashing that it's been taking, particularly from U.S. President Donald Trump?
Look, I'm not sure if this, solves the ICC's problems, its image problems or its legitimacy problems, but I know it doesn't hurt. And I think the ICC is an institution that probably needs some wins right now, and this could be a big one.
Let me just ask you before we run out of time. The Philippines and the United States are allies, and I'm just wondering, the fact that Duterte had taken the country out of the ICC, now he's been arrested. Is there going to be, do you think, any type of repercussions or consequences for relations with the U.S. because of this?
I doubt it. The Philippines has been receiving nothing positive signals so far from the Trump administration. Alongside Taiwan, they're one of only 2 places that have gotten waivers on their foreign military assistance so far because of the larger freeze in U.S. overseas assistance. The Philippine government got the first phone calls in Southeast Asia from both Secretary of State Rubio and Secretary of Defense Hegseth. So I don't see any evidence yet, anyway, that the Trump administration is looking at the Philippines as anything but a valued partner.
Okay, Gregory Poling from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. We appreciate your time and your valuable analysis tonight. Thank you.